Order. All things join with me. The pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tim, would you be kind enough to take the roll call?
Mr. Foster,
I am here.
Mr. Burgess,
Present.
Miss Foster,
Here.
Mr. Frazier,
Here.
Mr. Nealon,
Here.
Mr. Whitmore, here, Mr. Cott,
Here.
Ms. Dow.
Hello.
We have all in attendance.
This is the time for public participation. You're here and you'd like to publicly participate, you can please come up to our wonderful crystal podium. If not, you can email for public comment at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. Seeing as though we've got no one at the podium, we will move on to adjustments to the agenda.
If you'd be so kind to add to L1D, Jamie Spinney, Special Ed Tech. That's all I have for you.
All right, next I would look for approval of our last meeting's minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of September 19th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
Communications, you have it in your packet and there are none.
Right.
So you do know that the Maine School Board's meeting is coming up next week. And today's the day we need to submit our delegates. So we'll be talking about that on the agenda right now. How exciting.
We have superintendent's report.
Yeah, you received my written report. A couple of things I want to point out. Our focus really is getting back and getting attendance. Real important. I shared that data with you. I'll keep that ongoing so you see where that is. Do want to point out though that we have the federal requirement is any 10 days or more missed for any reason, excused, honest, doesn't matter, for any reason, they consider that persistently absent. Okay, and we'll be talking more about the attendance with the curriculum committee and truancy and such, but we're on top of that. We're working and trying to find kids. We still have some folks that haven't submitted homeschool paperwork. That's well overdue. We've contacted multiple times. I know Stu Bennett's helping out and doing the lead on that. She has a spreadsheet. You see where we've contacted parents 2, 3, and 4 times. So we will continue working on that. Enrollment numbers. You notice we're up over 1,100. That's interesting. That's attending. That's not resident. We have a number of students coming to us that are tuition students, and we've talked about that before. I did give you some data around busing and operational cost. It just validates once again our move to an owning your own model has been very good in terms of fiscal responsibility. It's also provided us better service to travel. 244,000 miles, that's a lot of trips around the world. That's kind of an interesting and challenging. Other than that, I provided you some other information. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Jim? Right. Board Cares report. We're having a very successful fall sports season. And this is the week for PSATs, as I understand. So that should be exciting. That, all I can do is just wish everyone a happy Halloween. And please make sure you don't run over any trick-or-treaters. Committee reports. We've got the curriculum committee.
We did not meet this one.
Okay. Finance committee met right before this meeting. For our regular budget, we're about 16% used. We are in healthy standing on that. We also looked at the food service. Food service is very positive right now because we've got a big reimbursement that has just come in. And the senior food is underwater at the moment. And so we're going to be presenting to them where they're currently standing. Policy?
Policy committee, we did meet, bringing one policy forward for first reading this evening. Having the discussion around kind of revamping the hall and walls of fame to kind of re-energize that and I guess maybe bring it back more under the board's purview. It's been ongoing conversation. It's going to take us at least another meeting, maybe 2. to, kind of get that all figured out and where we wanna put that and have more consistency to those events happening and kind of change or modify the structure a little bit as to how we get there. So, we'll be taking that forward.
Okay. Facilities?
We met with Anthony, he updated us on the BMS athletic fields. Baseball and softball fields are in place. They had some excess dirt they brought down below to use later, they stockpiled that, for future use. The baseball and soccer scoreboards are up and functional. He updated us in the high school, Anthony broke down the improvements in three phases. And the first one is the dugout pads by Wardwells and how he's been working with them. The Sharp students are helping out with the dugout structures. And then he talked about redirecting the power. It was going to the dugout, the home dugout, now it's gonna come right into the concession stand. And then talked about regrading the field. The second and third phases are gonna follow that, obviously. Talked about the BIMS project, he updated us, phase one is almost complete. Building envelope, hot water heaters, lighting is complete. Phase two will be the BMS siding project, we talked a little bit about that, but we had kind of a long, not real long, but we had a discussion about the direction that we should go to covering the gym windows. They don't really allow a lot of light in anyway, so we're just thinking about covering them over, and they'll determine how they do that. We talked about the Performing Arts Center, discussed the upgrades, suggested involving the town with these upgrades in the creation of things that need to happen. We discussed the football field light upgrades, LEDs, talked about the year in review, Anthony's 1 year anniversaries in coming up, the November 9th, which happens to be our next meeting. And Karen, any add to it or else that?
You got that, but you had a question.
Can I just, has it been talked about the lines, the parking lot lines at the middle school? They're almost non-existent, just a heads up. I actually had to park in a different spot because I could not tell. I was the only car in the parking lot, and I thought, I can't park here because I don't know if I'm in the lines or not, but I just moved to another spot, but it might be something that would want to be looked at. And I don't know how the other lines are doing. Maybe they're all great, but that's what I noticed.
I'll add that to my notes and I'll bring it up at the.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
I give you an update, we had a mobilization meeting for the exterior project at the middle school. That went very well, that was on Monday, went around, they did talk about the windows, they're gonna give us a price of where it would be to cover those over. And you're right, we looked at them again, those are opaque, they're really filled to the lights, you don't really get a huge gain. So there's a lot of heat loss there. And so the idea is find a way to cover that over and just integrate that. And the company that's doing the siding said that's not a big issue, so.
And usually it's dark.
Yeah.
When they play basketball.
Right, exactly, so, yeah, not an issue. So we'll get, I'm sure there'll be a bit of an upcharge on that, we just have to make sure we stay in budget.
And again, Anthony really has had nothing but good things to say about them. They've been tremendous.
HCTs?
Well, we did meet, Bill Tracy, started the meeting by sharing information of the conference that we went to that he was very impressed with, and it was good to meet with other directors and their issues and everything. Looks like carpentry for 24-25 will be a go at Sumner. I think there's still some hoops he has to go through, but I don't think there's gonna be any problems there. And he shared with us that he sent out a survey to a lot of local schools. Some schools have been better than others at getting back, so he extended the deadline. Other than that, that's what we talked about, that was important.
We did talk about upgrading our welding program here. And we're in the process of adding four welding booths. And by doing that, once we get up to that 18 number, we will qualify for additional funding for the program. So we can hire either a second instructor or an ed tech 3 to support, which would be fantastic, getting the numbers up to 18. That program has a waiting list back there.
I know a retiree who might be interested in that.
Yeah, I think you'll find a few.
When do you expect to have those 4 booths put in?
The conversation I had today is, our kids in the current welding program will be welding them very shortly. And putting them together, so,
So,
Oh, next year.
potentially by next semester.
it'll be for next year's goal, yeah.
Okay.
And on Thursday, I'm gonna be attending an advisory dinner and then meeting with Joel. Get to pick who we wanna go to and meet with Joel.
There is no old business. Under new business, we have resignations and retirements.
Yes, I've got, resignations from Justin Davis, custodian, Cody Gray, sped at Tech 3, and Danielle Freeman, and BMS cheering coach.
For a motion,
Well, I move that we accept these 3 resignations with regret.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And unanimous, thank you. And we have nomination.
Nominations, I have some support personnel, Georgina Murley, VHS Food Service, Nakia Hamill, Sped Tech 3, and Jamie Spinney, Sped Ed Tech. Also for coaches, we have our volunteer, Rich Perkins, wrestling volunteer.
I move that we accept the support personnel and the coaching volunteers of block.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. There we go. Next we have employee requests for leave.
Yeah, you should have in your packet a request from Sarah Carey, request for leave, asking to leave mid-November, returning mid-March. When that was first brought forward to us, we asked her to fill out family medical leave forms. They were not returned completed. I do know that, Katie Hodgins, our HR person, said that the request does not qualify for family medical leave. I have met with Sarah twice. I find that the request is, this is my recommendation only, I think it's extensive and excessive and puts us in a very negative position. And, but ultimately it's the decision of the board whether you support that or not, but it was my opinion that I would not recommend you supporting that request. It's
I
for,
don't have information on this.
So they never saw any request for leave either, Jim, so they don't have any.
well, there should have been a letter in there, I'm sorry, but anyway, the request, you sorry.
Yeah, because I think it's 41% of the school year.
Right.
Is what she's missing, and we set a precedent like that. I think we're opening up.
And it's to go to Florida, I support her father-in-law. Yeah, I know that was in the back.
Well, I saw it on the computer.
Was it in the drive, maybe?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I'm the one that's. Can I get a little? Wow.
Proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Well, based on Jim's recommendation, I think it's prudent and I would move to decline the request with regret.
I asked that we make a positive motion that we could vote against.
Okay,
So we always make our motions positive.
okay.
So if you just want to make a motion to advance the request for leave, and then we can vote against it if we would want to.
Is there any other discussion? Anybody have any questions?
And I can pull that letter up if you'd like, so you have that information.
So let's say this. Make the motion so that we accept the leave and then we vote against.
We always try to make our motions positive so that we understand which direction we're going in.
You're not voting yes to say no.
That's right. Unlike
So
Ellen.
we should accept.
Okay, double negative.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
And does this person have the opportunity to request a shorter time or anything and be,
We've discussed
assessed
that,
again,
we discussed that with her.
And it sounds like
She has
FMLA was
chosen.
already declined because of the particular circumstances.
and after that conversation, she chose to stick with this requested time frame?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we have,
So I would move that we advance the request to leave for a board vote.
okay,
Second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the employee's request for leave? All those opposed? And opposed have it unanimously. Thank you. And we have director of curriculum annual data update. Thank you, Scott. I saw that out there.
I don't see it.
It's just-
Ooh, you've got the big block there.
That's still like I can imagine.
We help her too.
I don't have my.
I don't, I see it, but.
I don't remember seeing it, but.
If I trip.
We'll pick you up.
We want to move this over to that.
Ooh, a sideshow.
Same one rolling out the old TV, so you gotta get that.
Oh, that
would be-
You know, I really wish that we had a projector right now with the
An
vis-a-vis.
overhead projector.
With the vis-a-vis markers and everything.
Oh, man.
So that would be.
1990s.
Okay, I know
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves. We'll be ready momentarily.
My goodness.
Yes.
Jones, who's that from every day?
He still does.
Doesn't it?
Well, Christina's getting ready to middle school, boys and girls, both in one day cross country these days, so.
Good.
Nice.
Great.
Hot off the press.
I think I'm ready.
All right.
All right. So as part of our ESEA requirements and state and federal guidelines, every year I'm charged with making sure that the board and our public is up to date on our latest data that we have available. So I have prepared for you tonight our district NWEA results from the spring of 22-23. So yes, May data. It is old, but we are supposed to share this. Hopefully we'll have more timely data next time, according to the state. And then I also have just published October 2nd, our ESSA state and district results from the 22-23 spring. So I'm going to be sharing two different pieces of data with you, and I'll kind of walk you through that. So just kind of bear with me as we get started. I've shared this with you guys before. The purpose of the NWEA data is twofold now. For us, it is nationally normed tool that we use, and we use it as a universal screener. So at the elementary level, K through 4, we give this assessment 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring. 5-8, we give it in the fall and the spring. That is now a requirement, so it's not even a choice anymore because the NWEA is also now our state test. And then we also give it to freshmen and sophomores at the high school, required to give it to sophomores, but we're also doing freshmen, fall and spring. So the Maine Through Year Assessment is the new name of a testing product that the NWEA company created for Maine specifically. And that is now our accountability assessment for reading and math for students in grades 3 through 8 and that second year of high school. So in the future, our accountability measure will be based on 2 things. It'll be based on the spring achievement scores on the summative portion of the Maine Through Year Assessment. So when our kids take the spring test, the NWEA has 2 pieces to it. Kids don't know this, they're mixed. Some of the questions adjust up and down based on how they answer the question before. And then randomly placed in the test are 10 to 15 questions that are based on Maine state learning results for their particular grade level. So they receive 2 scores. They receive what we're used to, that RIT score, that RIT score, 3 digits. And then they also receive a 4-digit, Maine had to come up with their own scaled score, a 4-digit Maine scaled score on just those 10 to 15 items. So our accountability will be based on that 4-digit Maine score. And we just found this out this month. And it will also be based on academic growth, based on the percentage of students that meet their projected RIT score growth from fall to spring. A lot of information.
So the state questions are randomly placed in the exam.
Yes. Yep. So a kid sitting down to take it may or may not realize which ones are the state questions and which ones are just the regular NWEA questions.
I'm just, thinking about if you're a slow test taker
Mhm.
and you've slogged all the way through the ones that don't count. And the times run out.
I have good
Zero.
news for you.
Okay.
It's untimed.
Oh, it's on time, okay.
Yep, untimed, so kids can take as long as they need to complete these tests. And they can, it used to be they could take as long as they needed, but they needed to do it by midnight on that day. Well, now you can take it over the course of a couple of days if you need to. We do have a window, right? October 2nd this year, October 2nd to October 27th is the window. So if you're not done by October 27th, then you're not counted in our participation rates, because we have these two measures, but we also have to meet 95% participation rate. And that's based on, thank you.
Who determines the RIT growth percentage? Is that a state arbitrary number or?
That's a great question. So that is based on, so the NWEA test, based on lots of research and lots of statistics, decides what the projected RIT growth will be for that child where they're entering. So if you enter the year and your RIT score in the fall, I'm just making this up, is a 183. A student with a score of a 183 would be projected to make a growth of 10 RIT points. So by the spring, that child should score a 193.
Based on like nationwide.
Nationwide,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes,
And
hundreds
the
of
test
thousands of
determines
kids.
it. Okay.
Yeah, yep. Okay. Any other questions before we jump into our data? Okay, so I'm gonna give you all of our local data first, and then you'll see the graphs change when we jump into the state data. So this is Jewett from the spring. So these are our current first graders. And this is how they performed in reading and in math. We tested 76 students. So on this, you'll see that the yellow, green, and blue is what we're looking for. So yellow is average band, green is high average, and blue is high. 41 to 60% is considered average. 61 to 80 is considered high average. And then if you score above the 80th percentile, that's considered in the high band. So I'm not using my computer, so bear with me. So 62% of our kindergartners from last spring in reading scored in the average or higher band. And 68% of our students in math scored in the average or higher band. You see the yellow, the 55th and the 58th, that's where the median score was across those 76 kindergarten students. And if I don't see a hand go up, I'm just gonna keep going, or because I'll keep you here all night. So remember I said that the state eventually, starting with the spring assessment, they're gonna also be looking at growth, which we've been looking at anyway as a district. That's something that we've focused on, especially at the lower levels. So the percentage of our students who met their projected RIT growth at the Jewett School from their fall to spring scores in 22-23 were 43% in reading and 44% in math. And what we're looking for is across the nation, the NWEA says you should be shooting for about 50% of your kids meeting or exceeding their projected growth. So not bad. So we had strong, I took a look at this and we had strong spring New Year performance with regards to the percentage of our students in the average or higher band, 62 and 68%. That's really good. We'll continue to focus on those growth targets by looking at our winter data. That's something that we have at the elementary level. It is an option at the middle school level, and it is something that Mr. Ward and I are going to talk about because it is kind of nice to have a winter mid-year check because it's too late when we do our spring scores to really kind of have those scores inform our instruction. This is Miles Lane School reading data. So all of this is reading. So you'll see for grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 4, look at those percentages in the yellow, green, and blue is what we're looking to have the majority of our kids at. You'll see these are the number of kids we tested in each of those grade levels in the spring.
What's the first set of numbers?
So the 49, the 43, so that's the median score across that grade level. So out of the 83 kids, the median score was in the 49th percentile.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And you'll see that the median percentile for 3rd and 4th grade is in the orange. Just keep in mind, just keep in mind that those 3rd and 4th graders, for the first time last spring, they were taking this mixed test. But this is just based on the computer adaptive pieces. However, just remember that they also had 10 to 15 questions mixed in there, not part of this, but that they were also doing questions that were grade level specific.
And Christina, it was not 3rd grade when they transitioned from where they have to do more reading on their own.
Yeah. Yep. I think we've had for those of you that have been on the board for a few years, we've had that discussion a lot about this particular test. K2, audio supported, right? So most things are read to them except for long reading passages. When you get to third grade, nothing is read to them unless you have an IEP with an accommodation that says you can have it read to you. Which you can't do for the reading.
Portion of the test, only for the math portion.
Right, you can read the direction, you can have the directions read, you just can't have the reading passages read. So this is our math data at the Miles Lane School for last spring.
Do you have any data as far as what may be driving the difference that we see in the third grade students in those numbers?
So we've talked about this a lot because we've talked about the fact that, well, across the country, you should be seeing that, right? Like if that's the case, then why aren't the norms different? Because they do reevaluate the norms. The NWEA norms are reevaluated every 4 to 5 years. So you would think that that would cause those norms to be shifted across the country, and it doesn't seem to be the case. And we've thought that it's a lot about that audio supported, right? So they're having to read everything. I mean, I feel like that attributes to a lot of it, not everything. I keep thinking that we're going to see growth in our math scores specifically because we do have a new math program. It is taking a while. We started our new math program during COVID. So it's going to be a bit, you're going to see that when you look at the middle school scores, like math stands out as an issue. Mm-hmm.
One thing that it's always been kind of an issue for me with the way that we look at this data. We look at they're completely different classes.
Yeah.
And then next year we'll look at a first, second, third, fourth again. But they're different people.
Right.
That third grade class, they took a set of tests last year. How did they pan out when they were second grade? Did they do as well as our current second graders, which are doing really quite well, or did they have trouble when they were in second grade?
Yeah, so that cohort of kids performed stronger as second graders.
Okay. And so then the question that I have for you is sometimes when we go back and are able to look at the data, do we get the questions that our kids had trouble with?
Yes, so what we just found, so this has all just been, the state data just got released this month.
Yeah.
So we're still having webinars and they're doing trainings for us on how to read all of the different functions that we have. So one of the things that I just learned last week is that we will be able to go into a certain student. We can't do it as a whole. We used to be able to do it as a whole class when we did the Empower test and the Smarter Balance test, all those state tests. But for this particular test right now, one of the things that we can do is we can pick Johnny.
Yeah.
And we can say, let's pull Johnny's data up, and then they're gonna give us a sampling on the bottom of the screen of how Johnny performed on 15 different questions. Like which ones did he get right, which ones did he get wrong? And so then we can look at the test question to try to figure out. We can't pull a whole class, unfortunately, so we have to piece that together right now ourselves and be like, okay, did this whole class get this question wrong? What's it about this particular question or type of question?
Because a few years back, we did identify that there was some items in our math program that just were being taught at a different point in time for the test.
Yeah,
So the students hadn't even had that
Yeah.
concept introduced to them,
yeah.
even though it was a grade level point. And so we shifted the timing of that instruction. We started to do much better.
Yeah.
Perhaps that might be an item that's causing a grade 3. It particularly since they did well when they were in second graders. It doesn't sound like you've got some systemic problem there with just that group of students.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I think I wanna bring that up, like, I wanna think about that again when we look at fifth grade too. Because there are some low scores in the fifth grade that I don't quite understand because they didn't perform that low when they were fourth graders.
I think if we're seeing this big dip in third grade, the first year that they have to read their own, what are we doing to stem that tide? I mean, we should maybe focus more on being able to read assessments in maybe second, early third grade, so we can not see those dramatic drop-offs. Are we adapting to that at all?
Yeah, and one of the things that we have to do more of, and it is really difficult for kids, is word problems, right? So word problems are so tricky for kids because they get tripped up in the reading part, but also being able to pull apart a word problem to try to figure out what is it even asking? Or is this question asking us to add, subtract? Like, what is it doing? How do we pull those keywords out to know what math to do once you get through reading the problem? So that's something that we've done a lot more focus on, especially in third grade. It does show up though in our illustrative math program in second grade as well. So we are doing more of that. So growth percentages, these are the percentage of kids in these particular grade levels that met or exceeded their growth percentages. Notice the 19% in that fourth grade group. So from fall to spring, only 19% of students met their projected RIT growth on the fall to spring. And I looked at that and thought, well, the test was, I keep saying that the test was different, but our third graders, 37%, they had a different test too. So that is something for us to watch. They're now fifth graders. So that is something that we'll be sharing. I'm meeting with Grace Patterson on Friday, and we're gonna dig into the data a little bit more because teachers are now just getting access to the data to be able to look at it. And so we're gonna look at that a little more deeply so that she can be prepared and she can help the ELA teachers at the middle school be prepared for what those kids might need going forward. So our first graders who are now second graders perform fairly strong in reading and math. Those third graders that are now in the fourth grade, they're gonna need some supports. And so we're working on what kind of supports do we need to be providing for those students, and then continue to focus on those growth targets that we're looking at. Hence the reason I feel like it's important to look at that winter data. And I think we need to do a better job at taking the time to look at that winter data. Let's not just take the test to take it, let's take a look at it and what is it telling us. This is Bucksport Middle School's reading data for last spring. This is just on the computer adaptive NWEA section. Notice in seventh grade, like a huge percentage, I mean, 29% is a lot of kids in the green in that high average band. So that 61 to 80th percentile, that's a huge number of kids scoring in that. 21 and 21 here too. I mean, that's quite strong as well. Overall, as a district, this data is showing us that we are performing stronger in reading than in math across the board. Math. So what jumped out at me is those fifth graders that are currently sixth graders, 47% scored in the low.
Yeah.
So
when did we change our math curriculum?
this is year 3, the math program.
So do you believe that that curriculum is appropriately addressing main learning results?
I think it needs to be supplemented. I think there are pieces that are missing. Tara and I talked about this.
Because I'll be honest with you, that graph looks like the graph did when we got the one before it to hit this, because we had early learning results in grade 5 that were terrible, and then try to fix. And that kind of looks like that. So I'm wondering if this new program just has some real deficiencies that they're really afraid of.
I think what we're seeing is that we definitely have to supplement, Jim's gonna be happy to hear me say this, we definitely have to supplement fact fluency, like just getting the basic math facts, because they are being tripped up by that when they get to the upper level math. They just don't have those solid facts. So it's taking them, like, that's where their effort is being put, when they have to be able to do these higher level.
Which I can attest, they're, like, my son is in the 6th grade and he's doing 10 minutes of math facts every night, like, that's his homework. So, I mean, if kids are doing it, actually, he only has to do it 3 nights, but I never really told him, so he does it usually 4 nights.
Good call.
So,
So we should have them do it 5 nights.
7 nights a week.
I think
No.
that, I think 10 minutes a night isn't.
No, it really isn't bad, and it's kind of fun, like, we all get involved, like, between his brother and my husband and myself. But the teachers at least are making an effort to,
Right.
but that's.
Yeah.
You gotta be involved at home too, so I know that's a challenge for some parents as well. But sometimes it's while we're in the car on the way home from the soccer match.
And that has been something that we've noticed. I've noticed that the elementary is actually, like, 3rd and 4th grade is really beefing up that too at Miles Lane. So it does need to be supplemented, and I think that's the hard part of, like, any program is only as good as the program is. And these programs take a long time, like, in a day. There's an hour for this math program. The company says you need at least an hour to teach this math program. So then if you've got to supplement it for fluency practice, you've got to make some decisions in your day. Or work, extra word problem practice. So we've had those discussions on where's that line between staying true to the program and, being loyal to the program to see if it's working, and also understand that it's not going to meet every kid's needs and we need to supplement it. So this year we are rewriting or revising and updating the math curriculum, different from the math program. But we are taking a look at those main learning results, and we're making sure that we are hitting those. And if we have to supplement, we have to make some decisions about that. That will happen through that committee work. I've already started working with high school and middle school math teachers a couple weeks ago. These are just the percentage of kids that met or exceeded their growth targets. Again, better and a performance even on the growth targets in the reading column than in the math. Looking for that 50, right around that 50th percentile.
Usually, when it is an individual, you expect the two to be pretty much the same percentage. When it is the delivery, that's when you see the difference. So I'm really deeply concerned about the math curriculum that we have. It was such a important part of the restructuring that we had done so that we could maintain the level of classes at the high school. And I'm really afraid that if we're losing that with this new program, we will significantly and detrimentally affect high school. So I really ask you at the curriculum level to really seriously look at what we're doing in math at the elementary and middle school levels. And if need be, if we need a new program, get rid of this one. This isn't working. We've had 3 years. Those were our results. They're not good. And we shouldn't sugarcoat it. We had a very failing math program here years ago that attempted to be piecemeal, attempted to be augmented, did not work. We spent a lot of time getting a different math program. It wasn't liked by a lot of the teachers, to put it mildly, but it gave a lot better results. And now it looks like we've got another program. Doesn't look like it's working good. Maybe just hasn't come into its own yet. And I am very concerned about that. Because if you're getting 45% reading, you know how to read those questions. And you shouldn't be getting a 24% out of that. there are people who aren't as good in math as they are in reading. But that difference ought to be somewhere around 39, not 24. That's just too big of a gap. And I can explain the problems that we had before, because maybe they're repeats. One was we were not communicating between schools well. So the information that was at the elementary school was not being passed along to the middle school. So that we repeated stuff, or we had gaps, thought things had been covered. Hopefully that hasn't re-brought itself up. But another one really is there are some sets of instruction which do not really align well with main learning. And maybe this program might be spending a lot of time and effort on things that just don't happen. So I would ask to look at that program again.
Definitely. I think we've already talked about the VMS takeaways, obviously, you know, the strong reading scores, but the math scores were low, and then just, you saw it, right? Nearly half of those fifth graders in Sylvan. And overall, middle school students are performing better in reading, but I think we could say that for the whole district. So like my takeaway is keep doing what we're doing in reading, right? Like, let's keep that going, but let's really focus on math. What are we not doing that we need to do? And do we need to be looking at, we want to catch them before it has to be an intervention, but right now we do have to do some interventions, clearly. So let's look at our intervention program. Let's make sure that's solidified. We do have some math interventions that are going to be hit pretty strong at the middle school coming up, like very, very soon. So we have Judy Frazier that's going to be working with us for that. So I'm looking forward to the progress that we can see happen for those kids. So Bucksport High School reading data. So we did have the 11th graders. I didn't remember this, Josh, but we did have 11th graders take it in the spring, last spring. We're not going to be using it for 11th graders this year, but we did have it for the spring. So you can see this is the reading data. So the sophomore teachers were really worried, and I'm like, well, I don't know why you were really worried. The sophomore data, 32% in the green was pretty high. That's great.
Why aren't you gonna be doing the 11th graders this coming year?
Really, go ahead, Josh, I'm gonna let you do that.
Really at that point, because it used to be that it was what the state mandated test, because it was a third year high school student. And now it's sophomores that are taking it, not juniors. So at that point, it's pretty much they're on their track, you know, where they're going. So having them test just for the sake of testing without a lot of modifications altered.
Right.
Especially by like the end of May.
Right.
Of their junior year.
It really provides no helpful data and takes away from instruction time.
Right. We had to before. It was the third year of high school. Now they switched it to the sophomore year. This is the high school math data. I'm gonna provide enough lead time, but not too much.
Now, sorry,
That's okay.
is that kind of shift that we're seeing in grade 10, grade 11, is that kind of students hitting sort of, I don't want to say like a peak, but is that just kind of where they are reaching the level of math instruction that they may feel they need for what they want to do, or is that an instructional?
You typically don't see as much growth once you get that 11th grade. You just not seeing the big jumps, whereas if you kind of watch where you are,
Because it's got a lot of their base education under their belt at that.
but you kind of get to a leveling off point. So that's why you don't see a lot of students meet their growth goals. That's actually really difficult for a lot of the students to meet their growth goals at the high school level. because there's not a lot of room for growth kind of when you get with their.
And the students that you do see in the green or in the blue, those are gonna mostly be the students who are looking at. Future in academia and
All the students in the group probably did not meet their goals.
No, I mean,
It's so difficult for them because they.
Very.
That's such a high rate.
right.
Yeah.
They have to get better than what they were at.
Right.
It's extremely difficult.
I mean, if you have a writ of 235 and you're trying to get to a 237, because really that's probably what they were trying to get at. I mean, it's,
We'll have our honors, I mean, they'll be in the 240s in math, and there's just
yeah.
there's no chance for them to.
No place to
Jumping
go,
just one
really.
play.
Okay, you're as smart as Edison now. Can you get to Einstein?
Right, it's just, yeah.
And often sometimes they put a lot of pressure on the social adult, we can kind of have to like talk them off,
Mhm.
but it's okay. Or even if they go back, like it's not,
Right,
when you're out, you know, they perform so well. There's a question you don't know, you get lucky and get it right, and the next time. You don't know when you get it wrong, it can be that difference of one year.
it can be like 2 questions, like really.
And also the focus, at least in the experience that my boys had, was different. So if you're in AB calculus and you study calculus all year long, and you're doing calculus, and then you take this and it's asking you geometry questions. And you did that 3 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah.
But the expectation is that you're probably taking geometry right now.
Right.
So it's all focused on that. And so it's very different at the high
Yeah,
school
that's a good
level
point.
because we don't have like
It's not
a
standardized.
strand of everybody takes the same
Right.
thing.
But they have to, on this particular test, they have questions that are across those strands,
Yeah.
so. Yep, that's a good point. So like Josh alluded to, I mean, yes, we're still gonna look at growth percentages at the high school, because the state's going to as well. But again, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because they're looking to make maybe just a couple points growth. Yet the 9%, that's probably what freaked out the sophomore teachers a little bit. But if I take you back to that slide that showed where they were performing, a lot of them were performing pretty high anyway, so it is hard to get to that growth target. And the sophomore test is the only test that was, I would say, was drastically different in the spring. There was no adjustability in the sophomore test because Maine was fooling around with the standard setting for sophomores specifically. So their test was even more different than 3rd through 8th grade because the state was.
Every student got the same test,
Yep.
regardless of their WIT score, so. And if you had 20 points difference in WIT scores, the same students got the same test.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, whereas the freshmen are getting adaptive tests.
Right,
that are
exactly.
more increment, so they're more likely to see a growth.
So,
We would have liked obviously better than 9%, that's not.
No.
Was not ideal, but
right,
we were not surprised to see low growth goals.
No.
in that group, yeah.
although I was impressed to see their performance on this particular test at the sophomore level with it not being adaptive. So. We just talked about all those things, actually. Thinking about the fact that 9% of the sophomores met their projected growth target, 72% of them scored in the average or higher band. So that's a high percentage. Okay, so I'm gonna jump now to the state data, if you guys are good with that. Ready? Okay, so let's move on to the state data. So just keep in mind that this was first administered in the spring of 2023. We're gonna go through the 4-digit Maine scale score now for the Maine 3-year portion of the test. It's not, those questions are not computer adaptive. Everybody got the same questions. The scores correspond to the following ratings. So there are 4 ratings you can get. You can get at state expectation, above state expectation, below, and well below. So those are the 4 categories. We just got these 4-digit Maine scale scores on October 2nd, and all parents will be receiving the individual student reports at the end of this month because those are all available to us, and we're working on printing those out right now to send home. The future testing windows, we are told by the spring of 2024, we're going to have our data within 48 hours. And we're supposed to get our, That's what we're hoping. We're supposed to get our individual student reports by the end of the school year. So we're hoping to be able to send those home to parents in June. We'll see what happens. They have followed through with the fall scores are available right now, the fall RIT scores, not, this part is just the spring, remember. But the fall scores for the NWEA are available to our teachers right now, if they've already taken the test. So we have that information that we can actually use. That's close. Okay, so it looks different. This is what the state gives us for charts. So this is the information that we have available to us. So if you look at Mosley School Grade 3 Math, so across the region, the median scale score was a 1505. Remember, it's 4 digits. I don't know why, they just are. So the state and the Hancock County region was at a 1505 and we were at a 1503 for our school. We had 37 of our kids meet state expectations to exceed them. And then we had 30 of our kids down in the below or well below. But so did a lot of the state.
So this is the same one where we just saw previously, the math scores for grade 3 didn't look that spectacular, but when we compare it against the rest of the state and against the state expectations, we're right on board.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so yes, we want to make improvements, right, to what we're doing, because we want to give our kids the very best. But when we look at what the state's doing and where we're at as far as meeting what the state has set for expectations, this is where we're at. So over here, for Mosley grade 3 reading, across the state was at a 1504, we were at a 1500. We did have 36 of our students either at or above state expectations. And our median scale score on the reading was a 1500 and a 1503 on the math. Grade 4. So for the math over there on the left, across the state, 1502, Miles Lane, 1503. You can see the bars of how many of our kids met the state expectations. I'm too close to it. So 34 and 6, so we had 40 of our kids out of the 71 tested at or above state expectations. Over here on reading, our school median scale score, our school median score was a 1505 and the state was at a 1506.
Something I noticed that I'm trying to process. In the 3rd grade, a lot more of our kids were just below, like they're very close to being right at the meet. Whereas in the 4th grade, larger sections are well below. And what's that discrepancy? Do you really have any idea, or?
I don't with this data yet because we haven't had a chance to dig into it enough to know. I mean, it could be the question, but I haven't even had a chance to like dig apart the question.
But
Yeah.
it looked like we were much closer to meeting our goals in 3rd grade than
Let me
4th
double
grade,
check that.
where you know,
Yep.
there seemed to be more kids closer to the middle, and whereas in 4th grade, they seem to be further away. I just noticing from the graphs.
Yeah.
But I guess
That's 2 different cohorts of kids though too, right?
It is.
So-
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's like a discrepancy in grade level education, that type of thing. I'm just trying to kind of piece it all
Yeah.
together.
Could be
Well, I
just
think
where the
grade
kids
3
are
to
at,
grade
too.
4, as far as reading is concerned, there is a big jump in the difficulty and depth of reading material that they're being exposed to. So there's potentially something that they.
Yeah, I'm just-
Was
Yeah.
grade 4 the kindergarten class that was at home?
Oh, goodness. Let me think. Were they?
This
I think
year,
that's
yep,
what?
Years ago.
yep.
Oh, yeah.
This year's grade 4 was
I'm
sent
wondering
home.
if that has
kindergarten.
anything to do with it as well. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it as well, because they were learning to read at home.
And the 3rd graders would have been the kindergarten class that had the whole year was kind of, yeah.
I think a lot of people do get more exposure to reading at home than they do as math at home. I mean, I don't read my kid.
Unless you're my kid.
You're getting that back
Yes.
5 nights a week.
Maddie, that's great, but your kids are already in middle school, that should be happening in second, third, fourth.
But I don't want people to stop reading either. Let's not get, let's
So we
not.
need to start sending home reading math books.
Math problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
as long as we're still
That
reading.
was good reading.
I don't wanna see the opposite happen.
Right.
Now,
Both are important, both are important.
these are our grade 5 scores, so these are our current 6th graders. You can see that, so that's similar to what we saw in our NUIA data, right? Like what we saw before, we're like, whoa, this, you're seeing the same thing here for grade 5 across the region, and the state was at a 1,500, and our 5th graders performed at a 1,493, so it was 7 point. Who knows what that 7 points means, we haven't been told yet, but that's a.
We don't know what standard deviation for this
Right,
is.
exactly.
Right.
But that's a substantial, compared to all the other data we received, that's, more substantial. So something for us to focus on and pay attention to. Again, they performed better in reading. They were right at, 1509, and that's across the state was the average of the 1509. So they performed right where the rest of the state did. So 6th graders.
All right.
A lot of grade 6 math students in that yellow.
In this.
We
in
have
the
not
state-
had-
In the state expectation number for that grade 6 math class. I just. didn't see it.
That's
I'm
okay,
sorry,
14
my eyes aren't that good.
1497, and we were at a 1494.
Great.
Three up. Yep. Over here on the reading, the state was at a 1507 and we were at a 1504. Here's grade 7. So the state was a 1497 for math and we were at a 1496. And we actually, in grade 7 reading, outperformed the state. Our students were, median was at a 1509 and the state was 1505. With 46 out of 67 students scoring at or above state expectations.
So somebody took math and they didn't take reading.
Yes. That happens because if, depending on when they did it in the month, if they were absent and they didn't come back in time in the window. So these guys were great this year of testing very early in the month, so yeah, our percentages look really good. And here's grade 8. So for reading, the state was 1496 for median score, and we were at a 1492. And then over here for reading, 1506 for the state and a 1505 for us.
I guess to Tom's point, it seems like the middle school curriculum is, something is horribly wrong there as opposed to maybe the whole curriculum, like.
Horribly.
Like,
Let me say this.
the data is shocking.
And
Like,
Keith, it's not shocking to me because we do not take enough time to learn fundamental facts. We spend a lot of time on process learning and moving manipulatives around to say, what is 3 times 3? Well, I have 3 cubes, then I have 3 cubes, then I have 3 cubes. Now I count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Instead of learning, there are some things you have to learn by rote. And I've been yelling this at the top of my voice for my entire career. I'm going out, so I'm gonna yell loud right now. We have to have a curriculum as an expectation that kids will learn math facts, multiplication tables, addition and subtraction. 3rd grade, 4th grade, they have to have it nailed. And if you do that, I guarantee those scores go up.
Did they break it? Was the trend to break it into like the cube type things because people couldn't form a good number
Because they
relationship?
wanted people to be able to
Understand the
conceptualize.
process. Yeah.
So,
All right, now in the
and I
60s,
never
we
did
weren't
that,
allowed
but
to
I could always.
conceptualize. We had to memorize.
But I always I memorized and was able to figure out conceptualization as well, so I don't know, that's
My brain works that way too.
like, I never did the conceptualizing.
People are
I did
visual
all-
learners, people are tactile learners, but you cannot lean on certain ways.
Yeah.
There's still foundational learning, and yes, every kid should have a set of flashcards and sit down with their parents for 10 minutes every night and go right through. And they learn the 2s, then they learn the 3s, then the 4s, then the 5s. and right up through. By the time we finish fourth grade, every kid should know, and be able to know by rote memory through the 12s. If you do that and set that as a standard, I guarantee your scores will improve.
And that is the important part of this process. Is to identify the gaps in our curriculum. It's not to criticize anything. It's to identify
Right.
gaps in the curriculum so that we can make progressive changes to that curriculum that improve student experience overall.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to do. So it might seem as though we're being a little mean. I apologize if I've done that. I have the mean streak in me. But, you know, the point is we want to defend the higher level classes ability at our high school. We want to be able to give the best possible outcome to all of our students, irregardless of what position they come into our school. And so there are going to be some people who are going to be in that orange band, no matter what we do. But if we do something for them to help them move along forward, that's what's really important. And my concern is mostly identify those holes, address the curriculum so that we can improve the student experience for every single one of our students. And it sounds as though we've got a good hole identified.
Yes. Yeah.
Task that to the curriculum
Yes.
committee.
Yeah.
How long did that identify?
Yeah, I think it's also important. The
Yeah.
curriculum, what we have for curriculum and delivery of the curriculum is important, but it's also important that we are protecting instructional time.
Yeah.
And it's very important, and we need to take a really close look at this, in my opinion. I'm gonna get on my soapbox now. I think we need to be protecting ELA and math instructional time. That should not be a time where we're doing random pulling for all different kinds of things, because kids are getting fragmented instruction when we do that. So I think that the curriculum is important. Professional development for our teachers is important, but it's also important that kids are there for the instruction. So if there's a math lesson that's happening, or there's 5 math lessons a week and they're missing 3 of them, because that just happens to be when they're going to something else, that shouldn't happen. Like, we have to be more creative. We have to get better at scheduling those things. So I think that we also need to take a look at when we're pulling for things like band and course, they're all important, right? They're super important, but we have to be careful about when that's happening so that our kids are not getting fragmented instruction.
Is this a problem that other middle schools have, or have they been able to figure out how to make it all happen, or do we just offer more of band and chorus and that's where, yeah.
Which is great. It's
You know, it
great,
is great. I
It
just,
is.
I wanted to know what
Yeah.
sets us apart.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest, Mr. Ward and I have done a little research and digging at like area middle schools or places around us. I'm like, okay, how are you doing this? How does this happen? How can you fit all this into the
And they say
day?
we have one band and it means.
Did they
at this
really
time.
know? Did they know?
We
it?
don't have a band for every single.
Right.
How
class.
did
So
they
there are
identify
some
it?
things that I think that we just need to be, protect things, but be creative so that we are not shortchanging our kids. And maybe it looks like a curriculum problem, and we'll definitely take a close look at that and put it under a microscope and make sure we're doing the right thing, but make sure that is the problem, and it's not just a matter of our kids are not there to get the instruction.
Different dynamic.
You know, attendance factors in, right? Like
Yeah.
daily attendance, that's a piece of this puzzle. We have a high chronic absenteeism rate. So we have to work on that. So I think there are lots of things we have to work on. Schedule, attendance, curriculum.
And there are a list of schools that are strong that you could talk to, maybe?
Yep.
You do have a list. of
We
them.
could talk to them, yeah.
What's important too is not only that, but also look at cohort schools of
Yeah.
similar
That's
socioeconomic.
it,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Right, and what are they, like, what are they doing? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what does their schedule look like?
Right.
What are they doing for attendance pieces? Because, I mean, we're all struggling with attendance, but, so I think we just have to take a look at all of those pieces. Curriculum being one of them.
So dynamic.
So I'm gonna get out of here in a second, not out of here, but I'm gonna go. They're tired. Hear me all the
You're in a
time.
hot seat like this one.
Yeah, right.
Right? It's okay, I don't mind. All right, so here's our grade 10, math and reading. So for math, We outperformed the median score for the state. So the state was at a 1498, our sophomores were at 1500. And then we were right at the state median score of a 1505 for reading. So there's lots of work to be done, but I actually was pretty happy with the state score information. I was not expecting this when they showed us the sample question. We had fourth graders reading about Shakespeare on the sample question. I was really worried. I thought, oh, this is not going to be good, but this is definitely room to grow. But this is not a bad starting point. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that you had not just the academic data, but the attendance data as well. So, oh, sorry, participation rates, I got ahead of myself. So a goal across the state is you have to get 95% participation. Parents can opt their kids out. And if parents opt their kids out, they still count against our participation. So it's state law to allow that, but the state changes us for it.
Yeah.
Right? So here are our percentage rates for 22-23 district-wide. We're at 96, and then you see the breakdown for the different schools. So not bad.
Yeah, the just kind of expected.
Yeah, and Mr. Tripp does try. I mean, I bug him enough to try, and he does. So, and we have to remember that we also have to try to get our remote pathways kids to test because they're part of this. We have to get our reach kids. So there's a lot.
But what happens if we don't meet the goal of district-wide goal of 95?
Nothing for the high school.
Right.
Oh, but district-wide, if we
It's true.
didn't meet, that's
Like,
not.
how do they penalize us?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
they haven't, but there have been threats that it will affect your title funding, your title, your Title I, Title II funding.
Yep.
But I haven't seen them. We just keep trying for 95%.
Oh,
Yeah.
good goal.
And then here's our absenteeism rates. So just to give you an idea, for the 22-23 school year, our daily attendance, our average daily attendance across the district was 91.1% of our kids were in attendance, average daily attendance. Our chronic absenteeism, and Jim alluded to this a little bit, for 22-23, it was at 9.04%. That means that is the percentage of our kids that miss at least 10% of their school year. That's what that's based on, regardless of reason, right? So if the school year is 175 days, if they miss 17.5 days or more, even if 6 of those were to go to Disney and 5 of those were because they had COVID and, whatever, those still count in this, it's excused and unexcused absences.
And we want the overall attendance to be about 95%.
We would love to see it at 95%.
That's our stated goal, every year,
Yes.
95%.
We always try for 95%.
No, what if, like at the high school, we have a lot of activities that pull students out,
Shouldn't.
like the Aspire program.
That does not
No, they're
Those
still
don't-
considered as
Those don't count. Okay,
Right.
good.
Christine, what's
sort of
trending
parents
through the
and
years? Are we going down or are we going up?
Yeah, so
It should be
You
more
can-
chocolate.
you can actually look, pre-COVID
So,
was much better than this.
Okay.
But the data from 21-22 is worse than this.
But what about
This is
remote?
better.
Is that count? Is it-
Remote counts as being in attendance.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
Were there some kids who were out for COVID and were able to attend remotely during that time, or was that?
Yeah, we could count
If
that
they,
in
if they
attendance.
felt, well, how sometimes people have COVID and they feel fine.
Yes, yeah, we were able to do that high school and middle school last year.
Okay.
I've already talked about our takeaways, but just to recap really quickly, district-wide, we really want to focus on attendance. So we're really trying to push that this year. Actually, I know it's only October, right? But the attendance, student attendance looks pretty good. It's only been, 6 weeks, but we can keep that push going and really celebrate that.
How do you control that?
You don't,
You don't.
you
You
just
just
communicate,
Push, but what's that mean?
you
Well-
communicate, you
You just hold.
inform, you
Celebrate
educate,
it,
and then you deal with what you get.
You
Yeah.
just hold- Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with culture as the kids get older, right? So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I know, Ms. Forrest's doing a great job with that at the middle school right now, like really trying to make it a place you want to be so that so parents aren't trying to drag their kids out of bed every morning. So we just keep trying, like just make it a happy place. And then at the elementary level, I really want to use that winter data and, setting those goals that we want 50% of our kids to meet their targets. we really want to focus on those current seventh graders. They were sixth graders, you saw their data, and the fifth graders, but with additional math supports and using that buck time and intervention solidly, so that it's not just an extra study hall time, they're actually getting targeted interventions for that. And then the current freshmen, they were the eighth graders. There was some kind of, we just want to monitor their math performance just to see how they're doing, because there were some dips in the math eighth grade scores that are now freshmen. And that is all I have for you.
On absenteeism,
Yep,
is it, did you miss whole day, or does tardiness also factor into that?
no, it's on a half day, so like they can be we take it down to a half day, so they can be in attendance for a half day, and that counts as a half day, so that's why those figures are like they are. But not tardy and dismissal unless it's a half day.
I'm just thinking of an old family friend who used to come to the district, and their entire family could never seem to make it on time. Every single day.
Yeah,
That was also me.
unfortunately, tardies are a really hard thing for us to change, because there's not a lot of meat behind that, right? Like, we tried, so.
But that doesn't being used.
It doesn't, nope, tardies and dismissals do not.
Okay. Any other questions for Christine? I know we really piled it on.
That's okay.
No, good.
All right,
Good for her.
thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
The big bucks.
I don't know how to get my computer.
Now, next year when she comes back and improved data. Right.
It'll be a little nicer.
Thank you.
And every child has a mathematics member. It's gonna be great.
And we'll have all forgotten all about this, and we'll all distinguish.
And if you guys see him anywhere, be sure to just quiz him on his time. I didn't even he'll tell you, but I was.
The next thing that we have on the agenda is discussion and consideration of the RSU 25 school board contract with Maine School Management Association to manage the superintendent search.
Yep. So, you guys did your workshop, you met with Eileen King. She's prepared to move forward, she's been actually starting to get some stuff ready for the board. But what needs to happen is you as a board need to make a decision, obviously, this is a public decision you have to make about, number one, are you going to contract with MSMA to manage your search? And at what level are you going to do? You're gonna do a galactic search, or you're gonna do a main search? Totally different things. It's kind of an a la carte. And go from there. And then the one request she did have is she wants to have one point of contact, and which makes a lot of sense, and you need to determine who that would be.
Well, I think at the workshop, we all seem to like to have Tom as the point of contact, which I thought was a good idea.
It makes the most sense.
And he's willing to.
And I have been speaking with her, and she did have a couple other requests of me to bring forward to you. One of which is, we had sort of fleshed out a list of people to be on this search committee. We didn't have names, but we had titles, essentially. If you would like us to actually have names by our next November meeting, which I think is plausible for us to do. And that also gets us through the election, which for some of our town councils might be interesting to know who is actually going to be sitting on them. I've asked you to wait at least those until mid-November. But we also need to discuss if there are any other type of ground rules that we want to give her. I'm thinking we go with what she's suggesting.
I feel like she and they are the expert in that. I mean, I'm very much in favor of utilizing them for this search. It's one of the most important searches
Absolutely.
for our kids. I mean,
We don't want to botch this.
Not really. So, I would like to put forward a motion that we contract with the Maine School Management Association, and that you put me as the point of contact. And with the understanding that, I will get together that list of names for after the election has happened, and I've contacted all of the respective town councils to get who they would like to send. And I will reach out to the other titles that you've already given me to see if we can get some people who will represent those positions. And, I will keep advising you at the regular school board meetings.
Second.
That was a very long motion.
You're gonna have to replay that one, Jim. You're gonna have to replay that one.
I've got the essence of the motion.
Okay.
There's at least forms and code sections. So,
And there's been a.
so we've got a motion and a second, all those in favor of that vote. All right, there's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And I'll keep you all informed as to how it's all going.
You gotta do it through email, Tom, or how you gonna do it?
So, you know me and email. is
Yeah, that's
not
what I- that's
really
why,
the most
yeah.
spectacular thing. So I've been contacting with her over the phone. I can contact you guys over the phone if that's okay with you. The way that the emails are public and we're hiring someone, I really kind of don't want to put stuff into the email. If we can avoid that.
You call me, come over and chop wood with me.
That's the best way to do it, because then you at least get the word.
Right.
So,
Yeah, as long as there's not a problem, we can have a little chat.
as long as we don't make a quorum.
You can't do business
You can hang
outside
out,
the meeting.
No, I know.
Any
No,
of
I know.
those
But I can.
that you want.
Just,
we can't communicate.
just an update. I mean,
That's all it is.
Yeah, just about it. So, I will try to call it times.
Will we be having like another workshop or something, to come up with
So the reason why
questions
she
and
needs
and
the
things that?
name is the very first step in her process is to have an actual workshop. So that we're all instructed of what our responsibilities are and what we can and cannot do. And she's hoping to do that at the end of December or early January. And I had pushed her towards early January, just so that if we have new town councilors, at least it's them so that they're in office. But if they're not in office, you'll always know they're gonna be there, so it could be a problem. Any other questions on that before we move on? Next, we've got review of MSBA resolutions and selection of RSU 25 board member as delegate to the annual MSBA meeting.
So,
Who's the lucky guy?
so I provided you the new resolutions in my board report, which followed shortly after the employee request for leave, which I included in there.
So I noticed that the delegate thing is on October 21st.
No, that's what that, as I put in my report, that'll be done October 11th at 9:30 a.m. virtually.
What day is that?
That is a Saturday.
I will not be able to do that.
Okay, so. Again, this board, if you don't choose to send somebody, you don't choose to send somebody, that's the reality, okay? It's up to you folks.
He has open availabilities on Saturdays.
Dan,
It doesn't matter, I don't wanna do it.
Scott,
Why do we need to do it?
Did you say
You don't
October
need to do
11th?
it, it's just
I
part,
mean,
you're,
We don't have to, but do we need to?
it's your organization, and it's your. it's
Do we
your-
want to have representation?
What did we have last
I didn't
year?
have.
I don't think we had
wasn't there.
anybody.
I don't know that we had, no, I think it was Peter.
I thought it was the one from.
That is the year before, when it was virtual.
sorry, Prospect, you take it over again, cause I work.
I'm pretty sure it was Prospect.
Yeah.
She did, she went down for that meeting.
Oh,
But
what?
she didn't go to Farm Cleveland.
Yeah.
Wow.
Scott, how much don't? I feel like we're all not going to the conference.
He's not going anywhere.
It's virtual. The delegate thing is virtual though.
It's not in
That's-
person.
Is that,
Probably some
is
big
that-
talking.
do you know how to do that?
I did.
Hey, you still want to.
This is, I gotta not let her know, number one here.
That kind of like is deserved.
And Scott.
So, you know, I was looking for a more delicate way to ask it, but
Scott, are you able to do such a thing?
No, no. We don't need it.
I know, I don't have the
So,
availability.
it sounds
on
like
that.
we should probably move on. It doesn't sound like.
What did we get out of
Rest
that
of
here?
that, So.
Just our voice.
And you just get your
We
voice.
just remembered who did it tonight, so.
No,
All right, so we won't send anyone.
Exactly.
It would, and the thing would be this Saturday morning anyway.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't have that
So,
availability.
moving on.
All right, so we'll move on for that one. We'll move on to first reading of policies.
Yes,
Policy JKAA, use of physical restraint and seclusion.
yeah, this policy, the changes there, and I provided that in your packet as well. That has to do with changes that came out of the last legislative session. This is a policy that pretty much we don't have a lot of input on. This is where you put your name in it and you go from there. So we put that by the policy committee, and it wasn't just David and I, there were other human beings there. There was. And we inserted those. I showed you the changes. I'm happy to answer any questions. Tara has also been well versed in these changes as well.
We look for a motion to move forward. Policy JKAA, it's a second reading.
I move that we put policy JKAA forward for a second reading.
Second.
A motion in a second. All those in favor? And that has moved forward to second reading. Thank you. That was me.
Yes, I got that. Yep.
Next, we've got second reading of policies. Policy EBCA, Comprehensive Health and Safety Emergency Management Plan, and policy ECB, Risk Management.
Yep, again, these are coming forward with no changes from first reading, exactly the same as you saw the first time. Yep.
We look forward for a moment.
Make a motion to accept the second reading of policy EBCA and ECB as presented at the first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Great, we can take care of passes. Next, we've got the principal and administrator reports. Christina, you feel like going back up?
You have been excused.
We feel like I want her to go back.
I think you've heard enough from me.
Thank you very much. All right, then why don't we
You get a bye.
pass it on to Tara then?
Thank you, Christine.
So,
Perfect.
Feel the love in the room.
So good, so good.
Before, I just will tell you that I taught special education for a long time, and it was a lot of years before I knew about the blue part on those charts. It took a long time. I was excited whenever I saw green, but I didn't see blue for many, many years, so. That's really what happened. Anyway, so you have my board report. It's short and sweet. A lot of what we're focusing on in special education has to do with professional development and learning. We have a number of staff who are participating in a workshop that was provided by the MDOE called the Regulated Classroom, and it's a train the trainer model, and it is free this year. I told last year I talked to Christina. I read about it. I was excited about it. It was $2,000 for 2 days. And so she was like, gosh, that'd be great, but no. And now it's sponsored by the MDOE for free. So we have 4 special educators at different levels who are going. It's primarily targeted for K-8 students to help them to remain regulated so that they can access their flashcards. And so they can access all of their learning.
Outstanding.
With a strong focus on math.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it up.
We also, at the new to RSU 25 class, teacher class, we'll be talking about, with teachers about how to read and interpret evaluations and also how to understand IEP documents, which can be complicated for new staff. I also linked for you a strategy that I shared out with our staff. I'll be sharing one every month about different ways to work with students with disabilities. This one is about classroom supports for ADHD and the digital version in the drive. There are links there. And I've been doing lots of training as well, learning about how to complete our required reports. I went to a training that was specific for new special education administration. And I went to Drummond Woodsum's most recent review of student discipline and the laws around student discipline, which then I was able to share with our administrative team. And we're headed to, Jen Bowden, the assistant director, and I are headed to the MadSec Fall Conference at the end of this week as well. So I'm excited. We're learning lots. That's our goal. And I just want to share, and I'll keep sharing. So this month, by the end of the month, we're slated to have held 90 IEP and 504 meetings out of our office. So we're busy. Any questions? Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Joe.
Trying to get updates from the boys soccer game. I keep hearing them do the window, thinking that their scores, but not everyone's a score. It's just a wild play of someone's soccer. But we're up 2-0 just in case anybody. We haven't done Alga's 100th goal.
Nice.
Like just into the game, which is exciting. And it's getting a little chippy. It's against GSA, so we kind of expected that to happen. So things are going pretty well at the high school, pretty fast. Tomorrow we have our PSAT administration. And as I kind of put out in my report, we had some conversations around how we're going to continue to offer the PSATs moving forward. For a long time, the SATs were our state mandated test. So we actually implemented PSATs in grades 9, 10, and 11 to make sure that we had our students prepared for that state test. And even before that, we always made a conscious decision to offer the PSATs for free for 10th and 11th graders and kind of forced it upon them. Obviously, if they chose not to that day, I mean, we didn't make them, we didn't take the pencil for their hand and say, "Pencil on the bubble." But our rationale really is, students don't always know if they are going to take the SATs when they're junior. They may say, "We're not going to do that," and then they become juniors and they say, "You know what? I changed my mind. I want to go to a four-year college that needs them, and I wish I'd taken them, when I was sophomore and junior." Things are rapidly changing in terms of universities not even looking at the SATs anymore. There are a number of universities that don't even ask you to put them on there, and fairly prestigious universities as well. So we are really having conversations internally. Is this something that we want to continue to make all students do at the 10th and 11th grade? Or do we want to make them optional, similar to what we do with the school day testing for SATs for juniors? I think there's some value to taking a longer test like that if you've never taken one, but it's also losing, as we talk about instructional time, like Christina was saying, giving rid of a whole morning of instruction to take a test that a lot of the students there are not finding value in, and maybe are not taking as seriously as they would want to anyway. So those are discussions that we're having. And what I will say is that even though we do get the data back from the College Board a lot quicker than the state typically gives us back any type of data, that data is not as useful in terms of making systemic programming changes, because it is a predictive test, as it's just trying to measure and predict how well you will do moving forward, and it's not an achievement test. So it's not like this is a set of data that we are going to take a look at our curriculum and say, all right, we need to change, how we're delivering math instruction or how we're delivering reading instruction. So those are the types of conversations we're having. It will be interesting. It will be more efficient tomorrow because it is being done electronically, and this is how SATs are going to be delivered in the spring. And that's really the more reason I wanted everybody to do it this year, is because I just want, it's all going to be chaotic and how we're going to break loose. I want to happen tomorrow during the PSATs, so that when we offer the SATs, we've kind of worked out all the kinks for our juniors when it really does matter. But we feel like we're in good shape. Mr. Morris and the tech department have worked with our guidance department, and we think it's going to go smoothly. Other than that, it's hard to believe that we're gearing up for the end of the first quarter, end of fall sports. I mean, seems like last month I'm just reporting on the start of the season, how everybody's doing well, and now I'm reporting on the end of the season, so we're talking about playoffs this week for all of our athletic teams. And then the end of the first quarter at the end of next week, so it's flying by, but it's been a good start. I don't think any questions you may have.
Are we still offering the option to take the ASVAB?
Yes, we do. Specifically, through JMG. We do have a contract with a company that does that, so it doesn't cost us anything. We can offer to any student who wants to take it. But it's not one that we have all students. Certainly students that quite often are looking to pursue a career in the military.
I think it should be encouraged for any students that are thinking about a career in the trades as well, because I found that test had a lot more usable data in that sphere than any of the other standardized tests.
I don't disagree with you at all in terms of like the applicability of the results from that assessment. Unfortunately, we just get assessment the depth, right? Like you take NWAs in the fall and the spring, and then PSATs in the fall and SATs in the spring. So to add another test in for all students to take. So that's really why we've kind of taken the idea of, but I'm with you, like.
Again, and I'm not saying, mandate, I'm
Right.
saying
Encourage. Yeah, we have had JMG students in particular because they're really focused on career writing, beyond working with that program to try to make sure that we are reaching the right students to take that exam. But I don't disagree with you. It's a very valuable tool.
Josh, has the university decided what they're gonna do about the SAT?
So I am hearing that they are not going to be using it. I'm assuming you talk about the University of Maine.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical. But that's just because I'm a skeptical person. And I say that because I still feel like that there are programs at certain universities that need differentiators. Now, the University of Maine, you take, for example, the nursing program. Their waiting list for the nursing program at the University of Maine is very long. Everybody that applies for the nursing program is in the top 10% of their class, has great letters of recommendation. They're involved in everything, they're captains and stuff. So there has to be a differentiator in there somewhere for those programs. They may say they're not using the SATs. I don't necessarily believe that. Because to me, like, how are they
So
differentiating?
the university might not, but the School of Nursing may, yeah.
And no one's gonna ever come out and say that. And again, this is Josh Tripp being skeptical of the world and not just
Yeah.
trusting that. This
But
way,
if you
I
don't
just-
have a score, what does that do to your odds? Yeah.
No, I just going through my own family on how all of this changed. I mean, when I went to high school, I was going to Hudson, they didn't take it.
Right.
I took the SAT just as a lark, so I could go with my friends, but I didn't care anything about it, didn't study for it. Jack he wanted to go to some fancy school somewhere. I mean, there was so much pressure and intensity about that. Harry found out no one was taking it. We couldn't get him to go.
got it-
He just kept
he-
going off to
he
all
got-
these cussed robotics things.
He got it canceled like 6 times.
Yes,
Different
he got
times he
canceled
was
multiple
signed up
times.
for it and the
So,
class was
you know,
canceled.
I totally agree with you on needing to revisit that because I mean, it's good work.
I do think that the majority of the places are not using it and they are not looking at it. And so even though I'm kind of skeptical, like I do think that is the trend. I think it will be obsolete. And I think the College Board knows that. I think that's why it's moved to an electronic test, because I think they're looking to cut costs from what they're having because they're not gonna, not as many people are gonna be paying to take this exam because the universities have just flat out said that we're not using it. And I think the big change is they're not providing the opportunity for you to put the scores down. So like places that are saying they're not really looking at it, but they still ask for the scores, that's where I get a little skeptical. But now we're seeing that trend and I don't know, and I should find out, University of Maine is asking on this year's application if they are asking for the SAT scores or not. But that has been a trend where either universities and the two-year colleges just flat out are not asking for you to put it down. So, so it's a sell. I mean, it was always a tough sell to a certain population of kids is saying, I don't want to take the SATs. I'm not going to take the SATs. Why are you making me do it? And now it's a really tough sell. To your point, to the kids that do plan on going to four-year colleges, but they don't, their colleges aren't taking it. So my guess is this will be the last time that we are saying that all of the two grades are taking it. It will be an opt-in model as opposed to an opt-out model like we use right now.
Any other questions for John? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we got Aaron.
Good evening, everyone. Things are going really well at the middle school. A huge focus on culture and climate and really making the middle school kind of a happy place to be, as we talked about, looking at attendance gains and those sorts of things. And we're seeing some really positive results early on this year. We had a great student recognition assembly, so celebrating student success is a piece of that puzzle. And we focused on, what we call a Buck Standard Award. We recognize 8 students for, kind of the pillars of being the tradition, and the classroom and the community and competition, which was really a great time. It culminated with duct taping a teacher to a wall. I shared some pictures of that. So they worked together. It was team building and teamwork. It was really a great time, and every single student contributed to that. And we had some really brave teachers, and as you can see, they were successful now. So we talked about the importance of team and how we're all a team working together to achieve our goals. And it was just a really positive experience, and parents were invited. It was a good time. So, and part of that culture and climate, I think we're seeing in our attendance gains, we're hovering right around about 94-95% early on in the year for attendance, which is fantastic, which we know is going to hopefully lead to, positive results on the NOEA scores and that sort of thing, which we just wrapped up. So, we're, lots of really good things. We have our sports teams are doing fantastic. Our boys soccer team won their first game in 7 years.
Nice.
Which was,
And they won 2 games
it's
this
incredible.
season.
There was a one of the kids who was in tears, like it was just amazing. So it was really just kudos to all of our teams, but that was a pretty neat moment to be a part of and see. In cross country, finished first and second tonight. So just lots of good stuff going on in the co-curricular and the awesome fields and facilities that we have as well. So kind of keeping with the the culture and climate, we are having a Spirit Week, which coincides with an Outdoor Challenge Week as well. That Miles Bisher is kind of leading that charge with our student council and the outdoor club. So next week, be on the lookout for lots of outdoor activities in the middle school. And it's part of a challenge, a nationwide challenge that's called Life Happens Outside, where students are encouraged to get outside. And record how much they're outside. So as a school, we are going to provide as many opportunities utilizing our outdoor classroom and various other activities to get students outside. And so we have a whole week planned around some theme days and whatnot, and really just looking at that sort of piece and building again that culture and climate. We are going to be having an outdoor movie night next Wednesday, the 25th, on the softball field. And that'll all be a part of that, and family members are welcome, and that should be a really good time. We'll have a dance, Halloween dance on the 27th. So looking forward to that. The outdoor classroom space is coming along. We're looking at the fish arriving here in the next few weeks, which is exciting that we can begin the hydroponics process. And we're also currently looking at pathways and whatnot up there to make it more accessible, and also looking at storage. So we're looking at a lot of things with the outdoor classroom piece and kind of bolstering that. Speaking again of culture and climate, we are exploring the opportunity of bringing Kiev and Wavis, which is a leadership training group, to our 5th and 7th grade students, and really looking at not just starting this year, but having that sustain in the years to come, and how can we build on that to really build leadership throughout our school and move forward in that sense. So, and then lastly, the PBIS piece, we've been able to conduct surveys with staff, with families. We had about 130 families respond to our survey, which is fantastic, and students. And we've seen some really positive feedback in terms of what we're getting and what we're looking at with that PBIS piece. The next phase for us is really using that data that we have and say, okay, where's our strengths, where's our weaknesses, and how can we move forward to create a more positive experience and reinforce some of those positive things that we want to see with our students. So stay tuned for more information on that, and we are in the works of kind of getting that PBIS piece up and running. So, any questions?
Walter can't get enough of doing the morning announcement.
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Every day that he gets to do it, he's so excited. His brother's pretty proud too.
Now, would you say with the teamwork that you saw, there was good adhesion?
Oh, it was. Yeah. Bad. I think the message.
All right, enough of these puns.
Next we've got darts.
Hey, everybody. So Miles Lane School, we have been working on the WIA assessments, fun times. They are wrapping it up this week, and then for the rest of this week and next week, I'll be doing makeup assessments with the kids. Our first session of our Title I after school program has started. We have a good number of students in the program, and flashcards are being used.
They may learn about that.
I had mentioned before, I think in the last board meeting, that at Acadia National Park, they have their educational series. We were worried about not going because of the government shutting down. But that didn't happen, so everybody got to, all of our students in the whole building, by grade level. They have different grade level programs at Acadia. Everybody got to go and participate. I included some nice pictures in my board report that you could take a look at. Over the past week, we went, not just some Miles Lane reps, but we went to the Acton conference, which is the technology conference. That was a great time. I had a couple teachers go. We had some incredible keynote speakers. They had some great workshops and hands-on opportunities, such as podcasts. I went to that because I want to start podcasting at elementary school. Green screens, AI, a lot about AI, which is really interesting. Merge cubes, Google Suite, coding with Legos. Those were just a few of the workshops. It was really overwhelming. But they learned a lot. And so we decided as an MLS team to maybe introduce something that we learned at each of our staff meetings throughout the year. So that was great. Our BRHC counseling services have started up. So we have lots of supports for our students on top of our school counselor and our school social worker. And we need it in our building. We have next week, we have we're celebrating Fire Prevention Month, where the local fire department will be coming to MLS for 3 days. They'll bring their smokehouse for some of the students to see, and doing all kinds of programs in our classrooms. And we'll be continuing with our fire drills during that week. The Veterans Lunch update, thank you, Abby, because we have about 28 people signed up so far.
Oh, great.
And there's still more coming in, so we are
Awesome.
Good.
super excited. And our art teacher, Margaret Jones, has our artistic gift plan that she's working on with the students to present to the veterans when they come.
Good.
Staff has lots of ideas for welcoming them into our school. That's all.
That is such a cool program too,
Yeah,
because I think the kids and veterans get a lot out of it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Any questions for Darcy?
What are student council elections? I
Yes,
know one of the
those-
candidates there.
Those are coming up. Heather Rockcliffe is our student council advisor this year,
Okay.
and she's working on organizing that.
Okay,
I think she's trying to get it, we have a PBIS training, I think, around the time elections are, that she's part of and will be going away for, so I thought she said November 6th, maybe.
okay.
She might be doing that, but I can get you more information,
But I know somebody that will probably find out.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we're just trying to plan the campaign and.
Yeah.
Certain the day.
I can see him standing up there and making his speech.
We're working on a speech already.
Yeah, good, awesome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. So we got Nicole.
I said at the 18 meeting, the honeymoon is over. Just kidding, just kidding. No, at Jewett, we've spent, most of the first couple of weeks talking about, getting kids establishing routines and expectations with the 5-year-old. So, that can take a little bit of time. And now we're shifting more towards the academic side. So, I've been busy along with, Alicia Smith, and our recently retired Terry Swayze has been in the building quite a bit, volunteering to help with some benchmark assessments. So now I'm kind of a data nerd like Christina, so I'm sorry. Christina, you can throw something at me if I'm going too long. This is what we're shifting to, like with the teachers, is looking at all of that data that we've collected through benchmarks, and we're almost done with the NUIAs. We have a couple more classes, kindergarten classes doing that, but as you can imagine, having kindergartners using iPads, trying to get this to move to this has been a challenge, but all the iPads are working fine. And I don't know if you've looked at this, I can't even see Christina, but while she was up here, all of the kindergarten has finished the reading NUIA, and the median is in the green at 64%. While in math, over half of them have taken it, and we're trending in the green. But while that's phenomenal for the pre-K program that we've had, as they were talking about with the high schoolers, that means there's less room for growth. So our challenge is going to be like, what kinds of interventions are we going to offer? We may be looking at some more enrichment opportunities so that we can make sure that those kids really do show some growth. So that's what we're going to be spending a lot of our PLC time sitting, looking at the data and letting it inform the instruction so that we can get those kids going and making sure that they show growth, even though they seem to be starting off pretty good. Let's see, with the community, we only had the one field trip where they went to White's Orchard, and they loved that field trip. This week is going to be very busy. We have hand washing presentations going on. We have nutrition presentations going on. We have the firefighters coming on Friday. What else is happening this week? I think that's it. I'm going to do another volunteer training in November. I need to get with Darcy, probably the 2nd or 3rd. Because we have a lot more interest in volunteers now that COVID's open, we want to get more volunteers in, and not just volunteering for field trips, but volunteering to come in and lead and work with kids on their math facts. And we got that memo. We got that memo, Mr. Boothby. We also, I'm very excited about this. We don't have anything confirmed yet, but we are seeking out main authors to have a main author in residence for Jewett and Miles Lane. So I put, I think most of you know Kaylee Chafee. She's a go-getter. I'm like, can you please find the author for us and get this set up, and it will get paid for with Aspire funds if we can get that set up. So that's something we're really excited about with these little guys. Communication's going well. I sent out my first newsletter, and Mr. Boothby made sure to call me and say it looked good. So I was good about that. And then PBIS, we also have 2 staff members going with the special ed team. I don't know, are they all going to the same one with Shannon?
No, we spread them out so that we don't have to have too many stops on it.
Right. Right. But it was, I just have to tell you, it was like to try to get those people in before it got sold out. But we were able to get Kaylee Chafee, and Alicia Smith will be going. Alicia is our PBIS coach. And so going to that regulated classroom, I think she and Kaylee will learn lots of strategies to support the SPED team. So I can kind of understand when the SPED team are telling them things, what they mean by that. So very excited about that. We had our monthly assembly last Friday. As you can imagine, with kindergartners and preschoolers, it's like 15 minutes because it's like herding cats. So I built in some fun videos and stuff in there for them to be engaged. But the kindergarten team alone, there's only 71 students. They earned 1,187 golden tickets in the last month. And so That was really cool, and we did draw some, 3 names, and we had some extra prizes that Aspire provided for us, so that's really helping to build that culture, get the kids to come into school, because they want to earn some golden tickets, so they could try to buy prizes and earn extra prizes, and they, because they broke that $1,000 golden ticket, mark, we decided to do a school-wide reward, and we're gonna have a pajama day.
Nice.
So they're really excited about that. That's it.
Just make sure all those kids know what pajamas means and that if they
Yeah.
sleep in their underwear, it's not okay.
Yes,
So,
we will make sure that they know that.
how's the building, have you noticed any atmosphere, like better ventilation or anything?
You know, it's funny, they did say that it was gonna seem a little cooler, and I've been making sure to wear extra layers, but I'm like, that means I have better ventilation.
Have you noticed it?
Yeah, I've noticed it a little bit, yeah,
Okay.
so it seems
That's
pretty good.
Yeah. Awesome. That's
Just means we're gonna be healthy.
facilities.
I'm like, if you're cooler, then that means better ventilation, which means we're gonna be healthier, so just bring a sweatshirt, bring a sweater every day.
Thank you. Along with that, good cat.
Along with the flashcard, right? Electronic flashcard.
I think we're gonna do a math facts test at the next administrative meeting.
Ooh, like the 100 questions? Ooh, I beat you. Remember the speed tests?
Okay.
Oh,
Those are great.
yeah.
Good evening.
So we just came back from our fall directors meeting, and the big ticket item for adult ed this year is gonna be program monitoring. I talked a little bit about it here, but I'd like to highlight it. The state office of adult ed was monitored by the federal counterparts, and they looked at both what the state office was doing and what the programs were sending in. And the program contributions, which is everything from invoicing for grants to our reporting data, looked really good, and they found nothing major wrong with that, which is a huge improvement. It's been 11 years, I think. They normally do them every 5. And there were some issues that they couldn't, and then when they scheduled them, COVID hit. So this is the first time in 11 years that they've taken a really hard look. And that is a huge improvement for individual programs. I will say that that audit 11 years ago, Bucksport was held as one of the standards. They actually brought other programs to take a look at what we were doing. So that's a hard measure stick to come up with. However, what they found at the state level is what they weren't doing is monitoring enough their programs, and they immediately said, you have to take care of this with the money that we're putting out there. So at our directors meeting, they had an impromptu desk audit. And that was everything from, do you understand your district central office? Do you know what your purchase ordering system is? Do you know what your time card system is? Your latest audit? You know what the results were? And there were like 6 or 7 questions. So that came down to us as fiscal agent, because we happen to be holding the 2 federal grants that they looked at. And the lowest risk level was a 0 to 75. We scored a 55 on it. Really proud of that. Our district was in one of the lowest groups out of the entire state for risk. And 20 of those points was the amount of money that they sent into, so we have that big MJRP grant for the clinical medical assistants. We do share it amongst the hub, but it is a hub. And the AFA grant is the other piece that they were looking at. So there will be more of that coming, but I wanted to let you know, because of the changes in the accounting system, the changes that they've done in payroll, just the heavy audit system that we have, and all of those answers and all of the, even down to the central office letting us as administrators know what those results are and communicating. There were people at our table that wanted to look at being fiscal agent and didn't even have a clue on half of the questions what they were. So I really appreciate that our district keeps us all informed. And it really came across, the first 3 questions were, do you understand what this auditing practice is? And we've talked about those things in 18. So I really want to say we scored well, and it looked really good for us. So I have high hopes for the rest of the program monitoring that we'll have in the rest of the year. But some of the choices that you folks have made about systems that you've done and changes that you've made also contributed to that very low risk. It looked really great. I think there were 30 questions in total, if I'm not mistaken. So, and some of it did involve the whole hub, but very little. Most of it was based on the situation. So, the other thing, we will be doing trunk or treat again this year. It's a fantastic way for us to reach a lot of parents, especially the younger parents. And we'll be, HiSET program is funding that. So you're gonna see a lot of, I can't imagine what Ms. Booth be when you saw my purchase order.
Sorry for
But that is funded by the HiSET program. And, it's a leftover from last year. So that does not come out of district funds. We'll be down there really promoting and trying to get people, reaching the parents for the diploma program, but also giving a chance to see all the kids and, participating with the town. So we're pretty excited about that, even if it is going away. Hunter safety, we were very lucky. Mr. Ashmore did his first solo again this year, but, they have a real shortage of instructors for hunter safety. And we were one of the few in the county that were able to get an on-site program. Most of them have gone to the online and then the little piece on site. And I really do think it does the kids better to have the full piece and really get a chance to interact with experienced hunters.
That was the promise, right? We were talking about that was promised that it would stay.
Yeah.
Bruce is so good.
He's fantastic.
We love him.
We've already talked about next year. It seems that week he picks every year, everybody gets sick and he's the only one left, which is what happened again this year, but we've already talked about a date next year. We're excited about that. Ceramics is back up and running, so we're also excited about that. The big thing with the AFLA grant is it's going to go out public. It's traditionally been an adult education funding from the federal government, and now it's going to go out to any agency that does adult education can meet the reporting requirements. So libraries, Job Corps, all of that will be competing. And since a lot of this free money over COVID is going away, they put us on notice. We'll be doing some heavy work on that grant application next spring. We did get, the other quick thing I wanted to say is we did get an additional 1.5 million for the year 25. It's just for 1 year. We'll have to work on getting politics out there for subsequent years. But we've never been fully funded, the same as the K-12. And this year, I think it's been 30 years since there's been any major subsidy money coming into adult ed. And so for year 25, we are looking at an increase for that. For our district, it's probably going to be about 6,000. 6 to 8. Any questions? You got little ones? This weekend, you can not melt in the rain?
Thank you.
Jen,
Oh, I haven't checked my notes. I feel like I've reported this already, but it must have been to a different group. So I don't think I'm repeating myself. I think last month I mentioned to you that we were about to have senior info night. And we did have that. I haven't said this right. So senior info night happens here in the library. And last year we had 20 families spread over 2 nights. This year we had 59 families on 1 night in this room. So 120 of our people were crammed in here, which was great, but it was also very crowded. Trying to figure out what made that happen. I don't exactly know what's different, but they came out, which was great because that means all of the information that we prepared in combination with the teacher that runs graduation and the teacher that runs yearbook and all the class information they need to get was all compiled with guidance and all the information that they give out on kids applying for scholarships and all the deadlines you need to know. So we were able to get that information in the folder, on the magnet, out to the kids. And so we were really happy about that turnout this year. I just want to comment quickly on a couple of things, and basically, there are a lot of things that have been mentioned even tonight that are things that Aspire is working on. And the point being that we're not trying to do things that are separate, we're trying to just help enhance things that are already happening to help them be more sustainable in the future. So, one thing that happens every year is that Earth Science students go to Maine Maritime Academy for a tour. This year, we were able to add another small piece to what they do, so that they could have a little bit of a career focus added to what they normally do when they're there. So that happened last week, and will happen again with the rest of the freshmen next semester. And they also were able to connect virtually with a NASA scientist. And sorry about that. An earth scientist, and there's a series that we've been sharing information about. So a teacher took us up on that, and they were able to do that, and she has the recording to share with her other classes. And there are some other science teachers who are looking to do other talks. So we're just trying to see these things kind of get embedded and kind of grow. Another thing we're helping bring back, I've mentioned before, is the career day. It's much broader than just a fair. It's not where kids go and mill around tables. It never has been that here, or at least not for the years that I've heard about it. So it always was kids would go into a room and get to meet with an adult in a field they were interested in, but we're helping to ramp that up a little more, helping the process of the students to know that they are well informed on what they're choosing. So I've been working on some materials for that. And then there's also going to be some workshops that they can choose from if they don't want to see 4 presenters. They can choose something on financial literacy, or they can choose something on, resume, or something on just exploration if they really have no idea. So that's going to be for 9th through 12th graders for November 2nd, the half of the day. And I know I've told you all about the Community Connections event that we were going to be hosting at the Alamo, which we did last year. So we decided that since the career fair is also coming up, and a lot of the same people would be going to both, there weren't a lot of new people who were going to go to the career event at the Alamo, so we've combined them. So now we're going to it's going to be a luncheon after the career day. So we have career aspirations in the morning, and those speakers can stay, as well as anyone else in the community who would like to sign up to come, even if they're not presenting at the session at the aspirations day. So
tomorrow's not happening.
Tomorrow is not happening. I want to make sure you don't show up at the Alamo tomorrow night, but I've notified everyone who registered, but I'm still trying to spread the word so people know. We'd like to say that it's still happening. It's just happening on November 2nd instead of tomorrow, just a slightly different format. But I think that's going to be a nice opportunity for people to get together. Otherwise, we've spent quite a bit of time getting ready for that, for the career events, as well as we did a presentation yesterday at the Melmac Peer Learning Conference, which was really well received. And our coach from Melmac, Gary, was going around and telling everyone they had to come. So we had a very good sized turnout for our presentation. And some of the parts that we did for that, we actually like to repurpose and share in district as well with some teachers at some point this year. Newsletter comes out today or tomorrow. Not today. It's done. It won't come out until it's been approved tomorrow or Thursday. And just there's some nice stories in there. There's one in particular about the Miles Lane students and teachers demonstrating how they added to a gardening experience at the school and field trip that they did last year, and really just tying in aspirations to it. So it's a great example in there. We're also helping support the Veterans Breakfast and planning for that. And we are going to trunk or treat again, because people said that was a good place to be seen in the community. So we'll do it again. And we are working on Jordan's booking a bunch of college visits and trying whatever possible on the longer ones to make sure that we fit in visits to 2 sites to make sure we're making the most out of the day and the mileage. So, that's about it.
And then we have Jim Moore.
Jen, was that supposed to be on the 14th or the 9th?
It's correct, it's the 9th.
Good evening, this month, returning the board report from the technology department. As I've been up here at the podium, realize there's more and more topics that keep coming up. I want to make sure you're well informed, you can reflect back on that. So in addition to the report, I don't have anything further for you. I'll just present myself if you have any questions.
Where's your lapel, Mike?
Don't need it here because technology, that's when we don't need it.
Any questions for him?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Great report, Mr. Worrell.
Thank you. I'm going to take item M out of order, so we'll come back to item L9 after M. Calendar and announcements. We have got curriculum committee, November 9th, 6:30, central office. Policy committee, November 14th, 5:30, central office. Finance committee, November 21st, 5:30, this room right here. School board meeting, November 21st, 6 o'clock right here. Facilities committee, November 9th, 4:30, central office. Aspire committee, November 14th.
Also 9.
9th.
That's just
Also
an
the
error,
9th.
a typo.
Okay,
That was Jim.
also at 9th, 5:30, central office.
So that's gonna be a challenge. No, it's not worth it.
It would have been a challenge on the 14th.
Yes.
Good catch, thank you.
All right, so
Exactly.
those are our calendar announcements, and now we'll go back to item L9, which is an executive session to discuss information from legal counsel pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 4056E. Would ask for a motion to go into executive session, and I would say goodbye to all of our.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
You have a motion in a second, all those in favor? That is unanimous, all right. We'll let everybody go by.
Can I run to the restroom real
Five,
quick?
One.
All right, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second, all those in favor? Have a great Halloween, everyone.
Thank you.